Hello, this is Daniel, and this is Down to the Wire. And let's begin. I'm going to first start talking about the Memphis Grizzlies, and I'm going to predict their first 3 games in the bubble, the first 3 out of the 8 games of the regular season. Let's start. First, the Grizzlies play the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Grizzlies already played them once this year, and they pounded the Portland Trail Blazers in Memphis, and that was without some of the Grizzlies' key players. I know the Portland Trail Blazers didn't have Zach Collins or Nurkic, but I still don't think Zach Collins is that big of a key piece to them because, I mean, it's not like he's a star. He doesn't even average over like 6 or 7 points, so he's not that big of a deal for them. I mean, I know Nurkic is key for them, but they still have Hassan Whiteside. But the Grizzlies pounded them whenever they didn't have key players, and the Portland Trail Blazers didn't have key players, and the Grizzlies won. So I'm going to give this advantage to the Memphis Grizzlies, and I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Grizzlies will win this game. You got just a lot of talent on the Memphis Grizzlies side. I mean, I know the Portland Trail Blazers have Damian Lillard and TJ McCollum, but not that much production besides them. And if they're so good, why are they the 9th seed right now? So right there is the answer for you. And then second game, Memphis Grizzlies versus the San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to give the Grizzlies a win because I don't think there's really that much to play for if you're a Spurs player because they're plus 3.5 games back. Right now, they're like the 11th or 12th seed. So I pretty much count them out, and I think that the streak is over for their playoff streak. Popovich had a good run, but it's over now. So I don't think there's much to play for, so I think the Grizzlies will get that win. And the Grizzlies have a lot more talent than the San Antonio Spurs. And the third game, the Grizzlies play the New Orleans Pelicans. This game's going to be on ESPN because Zion and Ja. It's going to be a really big game. I'm going to go against many of the predictors. I'm going to say the Memphis Grizzlies are going to win. I know you think I'm foolish, but that's not true. I mean, before the Pelicans, I think they'll be 0-2 in the 8-game regular season that they're doing in the bubble. I think they're going to start off 0-2 because they have to play the Utah Jazz and the Clippers right before they play the Grizzlies. So I think they'll be 0-2. Then the Grizzlies will be like 5.5 games ahead of the Pelicans. So right there, I don't think the Pelicans would have a shot if you're 5.5 games back. So I think also there'd be nothing to play for because you're 5.5 games back, and with only a few remaining games left, it would be hard to steal it from the Grizzlies. I think this will be a hard-fought game, but in the end, I think the Grizzlies adding Justice Winslow will be huge, and I think the Grizzlies will be able to pull this one off. So I predict the Grizzlies to be 3-0 starting in the bubble. 2 short breaking news from the NFL. First, the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones, defensive lineman, one of the top defensive linemen in the NFL right now. He signed an extension, a 4-year, $84 million extension, and about $60 million guaranteed money right there. It's really good for the Chiefs. They got him locked up. Many people thought they were going to trade him because it sounded like they weren't going to get a deal done, but they got a deal done, so that's very good for the Chiefs. Really solidify their defense, and he's the best player on their defense, so it's really good to get him locked up for the future. And go to the Cleveland Browns. They signed Myles Garrett to a 5-year, $125 million contract extension, so that's really good too. He's the best player on their defense also, very young, talented player, and last year before he got suspended, he had 10 sacks, and he got suspended after like week 13 or something like that, so he had a really productive year last year, and really good for the Browns to get him locked up for the future. So some good news out of the NFL and good for the Chiefs and the Browns. So I'm going to now say my surprise teams for the NBA playoffs and who I think may possibly upset some teams and make a little run. First, I'm going to start with the Boston Celtics. I do not think they're going to win the finals. I think they'll get to the conference finals, and I think they'll give the Bucks a run for their money because they have a lot of young, talented players. Jason Tatum is looking very good. I mean, he was really looking like one of the best players in the NBA right before the coronavirus shut down. And they also have Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. So just a really nice group right there. Also Marcus Smart coming off the bench, Daniel Tice. So a really nice group right there. and I think they can make some noise. I think they'll get to the conference finals, but I think the Bucks will be the team to beat. But I think the Celtics will make some noise in the NBA playoffs. And my second team is the Philadelphia 76ers. Everybody's counting them out right now because they're loaded, but they just underachieved so far. I know they're the 6th seed, but I mean, just look at their starters: Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and you also have Al Horford coming off the bench. So that's just very good. I mean, Al Horford can also start, but they put him on the bench to give him some more bench production and some more points. And they brought Korkmaz is now starting to give him some extra shooting. Very good 30-point shooter right there. So I think the 76ers could really make some noise in the playoffs because they're one of the most talented teams in the NBA. And my other team is the Houston Rockets. They have James Harden and Russell Westbrook, but the reports are that James Harden lost 20 pounds. I mean, he was already pretty thick, but he wasn't fat, but he was kind of big. I mean, he was still really explosive, but now since he loses 20 pounds, he'll be even more explosive, more fast, and I would expect a lot better James Harden. Even though James Harden is one of the MVP candidates, I think you'll see another version of James Harden even better than what he is right now, and that's amazing, averaging 30-plus points per game. And I think Russell Westbrook is having one of his best years of career, even though he's not doing that well from the three-point line. I think he's averaging right before it was shut down like 25 plus, maybe 27. So he was doing very well. Obviously, they went all in getting Robert Covington, trading away Clint Capella. So this is really risky. It was a really risky trade, but it could all. I mean, if they make it to the finals, it could all be worth it. So I think that the Rockets will be a surprise team in the NBA playoffs. And then also the Dallas Mavericks, the 7th seed right now in the Western Conference. Obviously, they have to play the Clippers, but they have Luka Doncic, one of the best NBA stars right now. And then you also have Kristaps Porzingis, one of the best big men in the NBA. He can really shoot the three ball. They call him a unicorn because he's really tall and he can shoot the three ball. That's what they call him in the NBA. And then you also have really nice players around him. Him and Luka. You got Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, Seth Curry, and just many other players, and Tim Hardaway Jr. But Willie Cauley-Stein decided not to play. That could hurt them because they don't have that much center depth after Dwight Powell got hurt. But you also have a lot of other players that really contribute. Courtney Lee is also hurt right now. But you also have Maxi Kleba, who can shoot the three ball too. He's about 6'11", so I think the Mavericks will also make some noise in the playoffs too. And my other team is the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they could take a few games off the Lakers. I don't know if they'll upset the Lakers, but I think they'll give them a run for their money in the first round. And that's my surprise teams for the NBA playoffs. The next segment will be Prove Me Wrong. And today it's going to be, I think that the Tennessee wide receiver core is very underrated, starting with D'Angelo Gibbs, a transfer from Georgia. Jeremy Pruitt said he was tearing up the Tennessee defense last year when he was running with the scout offense because he was ineligible. But now I think he'll be one of the top playmakers on this offense. He's this really fast wide receiver. If you watch his highlights from high school, he's a very fast wide receiver and really good at 50-50 balls, has amazing hands, so I think he'll be a top receiver for Tennessee this year. You also have Josh Palmer, one of the most productive wide receivers last year for Tennessee. You have him coming back. That's a really nice plus right there. And then you have a rising sophomore, Ramel Keaton, who showed some brightness, but he still needs to have a little more production for me to say he's the top 3 Tennessee receiver, but I think he could maybe be starting the slot, or he could also play outside. Also, you saw some flashes in the Indiana game where he caught that really long ball. Also in the Mississippi State game, he has some really nice hands, and he also has some good speed. He just needs to put it all together, and I think he'll be a pretty nice wide receiver for Tennessee. You also have redshirt senior Brandon Johnson coming back. A couple years ago, when Butch Jones last year, he was Tennessee's leading receiver, but then he kind of just went away. But he decided to redshirt so he could play this year. We might see a little more of him this year. And then one of the top receivers last year and one of the top recruits last year, Malachi Wideman, a 6'4" wide receiver. Tennessee got him late in the recruiting process, but he's a huge get, a 4-star, and he's really good at the 50-50 balls. He likes to go up and get it, and he's got really nice hands. And then you got Jalen Hyatt, one of the fastest wide receivers I've ever seen in college football. He's a 4-star too, a really nice track star. Tennessee hasn't had one of these fast players in a really long time, especially in the last 10 years with Butch Jones, Dooley, and Glenn Kiffin. You haven't seen one of these fast wide receivers in a long time, since maybe Fulmer's days. And Hyatt he has next level speed, and he's really good hands too. If you watch his highlights, he's one of the most explosive receivers you get a chance to see in a very long time. And then you get Jimmy Callaway, a speed wide receiver also. Not as fast as Jalen Hyatt, but he can also make you miss in the open field, and he has also his good hands, very good hands too as well. I want you to prove me wrong, and because I think that Tennessee's wide receiver core is very underrated, and I want you to prove me wrong. Let's go to the phones. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Hello. What are your topics today?
Well, right now we're doing Prove Me Wrong, and I said Tennessee's wide receiver core is very underrated.
Can I talk about something else?
Sure.
Well, about the Prove Me Wrong, you would have to give. It's always great to hear that one of our scouting players is turning up our starting defense.
Yes, it is.
Well, I guess I just proved you wrong.
I don't get what you're saying, but D'Angelo Gibbs the reason he was on the scout team last year is because he was ineligible because he transferred. You have to take a year out because he wasn't cleared by the NCAA, but I think he'll be one of Tennessee's top receivers next year. Let's go back to the phones. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Hi, Daniel. What's the Prove Me Wrong question tonight?
I think that Tennessee's wide receiver core is very underrated. I think they'll be one of the top receiver cores in the SEC next year.
Now, Daniel, I hear you talking about Tennessee a lot, and let's just back it up here, okay? You're naming out all of these 5-star recruits that Tennessee is getting, but don't they need time to develop? Do you think Tennessee will be good next year, or will it take, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, thank you for your call. Well, I think that I think it'll be either this year or next year because as you can see, Pruitt is really developing these players. They started out 0-2 and they've 1-3, and then they finished the season 6-0. That was to Georgia State, but everybody admitted that they weren't focused on Georgia State. They were looking ahead, and you can't lose to Georgia State, but they were looking ahead. But I think this will be Pruitt's year or next year. I think it's going to be this year because Tennessee will have one of the top offensive lines, and I think this wide receiver core is going to be stacked across the board.
Well, I don't think so, man.
Thank you for your call. And now I'm going to talk about why I think Memphis football will take a little step back this year. I'm not saying it'll be significant, but I think it'll be a little bit because obviously you lose your very good head coach and Mike Norvell to Florida State, a big loss. And then you just hired Ryan Silverfield, your offensive line coach. So I think it'll be a significant difference right there in the development and recruiting. Memphis isn't doing that well in football recruiting right now. But you also lose running back / wide receiver, one of your best players on the offensive side, Antonio Gibson, to the NFL. So that's another huge loss. Obviously, Brady White coming back. But besides that, not that many key playmakers, maybe a couple running backs, but I'm still thinking because of Mike Norvell's absence that Memphis will take a little step back. And, think of all the teams you have to play this year. Houston, SMU, UCF, Cincinnati, Navy, and Temple. Those are all very, very good teams right there for you. Memphis has a really tough schedule next year, and they also lost their head coach, so I think they'll take a little step back. Let's go back to the phones. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Hello, this is Peary Iverson.
Hello, Peony.
Now, Daniel, it comes to my attention that you like to take shots at Memphis sports. And now I want you to prove me wrong. Okay, I want you to prove me wrong here. Now, last year, what did Tennessee rank in football? What was their overall college football ranking?
I have another question for you. When Memphis faced a top 10 team, did they win or did they lose against Penn State?
When Tennessee paid a horrible team to come play, did they win or lose?
They lost because they were looking ahead.
No, that was even my prove me wrong.
How many wins do you have against a top 25 program? None.
Daniel, I want you to tell me what Tennessee is ranked. How about you answer me that?
This upcoming year in the top 25, Tennessee is number 19 and Memphis is not in it. So tell me why that is.
Talking about things that already happened.
We're not looking back at the past. We're looking at the future and the present.
Tennessee's ranked last year.
And Memphis lost their head coach, and they replaced him with the offensive line coach.
Yeah.
That's not
We don't need him. He's already in trouble in Florida State for paying players. So he was bad for the program, anyways. Got to move forward, as you said. I just want you to prove me wrong.
If you want to look at the past, how many national championships does Memphis have?
I'm gonna say 0, but has Tennessee won a championship in the modern era?
Yes, they won it 20 years ago.
That was a long time ago. Okay, I wasn't even alive then. I can't speak for you, but that's my question. Just prove.
How many national championships has Memphis won in the modern era?
I'm gonna say 0. We're building the program.
And you lose your head coach, and you say you're building it?
Yeah, our new coach, the boys like him. He's a good man.
Yeah. Well, you're not ranked in the top 25, so Memphis will take I think you're going to take a step back because they have a hard schedule and they lose their best offensive player and their head coach. So I think Memphis will take a step.
That's fair.
Well, you're just a biased Memphis fan. Thank you for your call.
You're a biased, not still fan.
Let's go back to the phones. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Yes, hi Daniel. This is Phyllis from Philadelphia, and I have 2 things. I wondered, I understand that there was some kind of a slowdown on the Cade Mays situation. I thought like months ago that he had been approved to play, but now I understand that he hasn't even been approved yet, and I wondered if you thought he would be able to play this coming season. And the other question I had was about the hot dog eating contest over the Independence Day. I didn't get a chance to see it, and I wondered if you knew who won and how many hot dogs they were able to eat. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. Well, first about Cade Mays. The reason he hasn't been approved yet is Tennessee local analyst Jimmy Heim just said that today that Cade Mays just turned in his thing to NCAA last week. And everybody thought it was a long time ago, but it was just last week, so it might take a little bit longer. But his lawyer that is doing this with the NCAA was the same lawyer as Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, and they were both approved. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cade Mays is approved and ready to go for this year. And I'm not worried about that at all. But and for the other one, the hot dog eating contest. The winner was Joey Chestnut as usual, and he ate a record 75 hot dogs. So, it's hard to do right there, and he's one of the best. He's the best ever to do it at the hot dog eating contest. It's incredible that you can eat 75 hot dogs in a couple minutes. So, it's really incredible, and he's talented at what he does. Let's go back to the phones. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Daniel, Elridge, Devin, Withersfield III, East Memphis.
Hello, Elridge.
Daniel, I don't have anything specific to talk about tonight, but have you heard of Chavis? The news on Chavis breaking at Blood X Sports?
No, I have not.
He took a job at a high school football team in Knoxville.
Really?
That's what I'm hearing.
That's very interesting. I knew he was a coach at Tennessee, but I did not know he moved back here and decided to coach high school, but that's very interesting.
one thing I want to talk about, Daniel, is your last show. Can we talk about a little quality control?
Sure.
I'm thinking Down to the Wire needs to upgrade with getting some Wrap It Up music. My goodness, Dan. On the last show, I thought I was watching the Academy Awards with Carrie from Carrie was questioning 5 minutes. I actually took it, woke up, and her question was still going on. And can we please get off the Kansas City Chiefs bandwagon? All of a sudden, everyone's a Chiefs fan. Please. Remind me of a Memphis fella I saw with my Titan season tickets who was bordering on morbid obesity at the Titans game with the 49 jerseys on, and he had kids with him. Pathetic. But I digress, Daniel. Let's get back to the Chiefs for a moment. First off, we have fake callers from allegedly Kansas City who clearly sound like they are from East Tennessee. Whoever that guy is, he isn't fooling anybody here in Brentwood. And second, Daniel, I think we need to boycott speaking about a team that is clearly part of the patriarchal hegemony. Until they change the name, I think that they should be shunned from Down the Wire. What are your sources telling you on possible name changes? I'm hearing the Kansas City Mud Pies.
Well, right now, I think the Chiefs are going to stick with their name. You haven't heard anything about the Chiefs wanting to change their name. And so I think they'll stick with the Kansas City Chiefs right now.
I'm hearing Kansas City Mud Pies. I think it's relevant, looks to the future, and actually represents that region of the country. So I'll hang up and listen to your agreeing with my comments.
Thank you, Elrich. Well, I think the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're going to stick with their name right now, but I think another name that they could, if they ever did change it, maybe the Kansas City Kings, but that's just my opinion. But thank you for your call, Elrich. Thank you for watching this episode of Down to the Wire, and I hope you're doing well.